Welcome to GW Integrative Medicine, the podcast about disease prevention and health promotion from the Office of Integrative Medicine and Health at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. I'm Janet Rodriguez, the office's administrative director. Today, we're joined by certified nurse-midwife Kimla McDonald, an associate clinical professor here at GW, and Anjali Dsouza, MD, an assistant clinical professor here at GW as well. Our topic is going to be integrative and functional medicine in women's health. Both of you did an amazing grand rounds a few months ago with one of our co-hosts, Dr. Misha Kogan. And I thought immediately we need to have you on the program to talk a little bit about what you talked to a pretty full room, which was impressive. At what time of the morning was that?
It was very early.
7:30.
Yes. Very early.
You don't sound happy about that, Kimla.
Every Wednesday. Yes, it's excellent turnout, though. Yeah, I was very, very happy.
So let's get to it. How do you incorporate integrative medicine into women's health?
Maybe before I answer the how, I'll take one step back and say a little something about the why. And
yes,
the why
please.
is really because I feel very passionate and believe very strongly that the body is a dynamic organism and systems interact with each other. And even though I very much value my medical education and think it's super important and informs me every day, the way I was taught was to think about symptoms, disease states, and treatments that are typically medications and are typically very focused, right? They deal with one mechanism or one receptor, and it fails to kind of think about this complexity or dynamic nature of the body. And if that works, that's great. But a lot of times it doesn't work. And worse, people end up on multiple medications and are living with side effects of their multiple medications. And so that's what inspires me to do the how I integrated is the why. And the how is kind of being passionate about it and then thinking about every case from this system's perspective. And so people do multiple questionnaires when they come in so that I can see what are the different systems in their body that might be offline and how those interact. And then I can think about making a very comprehensive treatment plan that honors and acknowledges all of that.
Whole health.
Whole health, yeah. Totally.
Kimla?
Well, I come from a midwifery training perspective. I went to nursing school, and I agree that so much of health is not just responding to the symptom that someone might have, but looking deeper. And I think the midwifery model of care tends to be a more holistic view, also taking into account when you're, going through menopausal changes, you're struggling with, the onset of menstruation, you're pregnant, you're postpartum, you're breastfeeding, all these states that women go through, they're emotional. They're taxing emotionally and physically. So you can't just look at one body system. And I think as Anjali said, it's a very dynamic system. And I think the way integrative and functional medicine approaches it just makes so much sense.
It's really what I thought being a doctor was before I went to medical school. Just being honest.
Yeah.
True. We often, we have so much of a nutrition focus on the podcast because Dr. Frame's background. And every once in a while, we just have to bring up the study that showed that before a student gets into medical school, they think nutrition is important. Mm-hmm. Then they get into medical school, it's no longer important. Mm-hmm. Then when they graduate and they're in practice for a while, guess what? They come completely back around to nutrition is important.
I wish I knew something more about it. Yes.
So when did you decide to adopt this approach? Or is this an approach? I mean, with midwifery, it's part of how you're trained. And you went into a little bit with your prior response. Mm-hmm. But during the grand rounds, you shared a personal story with us about your life. Mm-hmm. Could you?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to share. I mean, I think I'll just say that I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that really honored traditional practices. And so we looked at food and botanicals even when I was a kid, and we did not go to the doctor very often. And so I thought, well, if I know this and I go to medical school, maybe I can blend the two of these things. That was kind of the idea. But really, this became very palpable for me when I became a patient, as you were mentioning. And it was 2 years after my first child was born, and I just felt not well. I mean, I was still going to work. I was functioning from an external perspective. I think everyone would think I was totally fine, but I was not sleeping. I was stressed. I was really tired. My hair was falling out. I was constipated. And I thought I must have low thyroid. I must be hypothyroid. And I went to, top internal medicine doctor in DC who did a bunch of tests and essentially told me that I was fine, that everything was normal. And the readout was essentially that I should probably seek out psychotherapy. And it just rang hollow for me because that was just, it didn't resonate. It was completely empty.
Old school hysteria diagnosis?
Apparently. And this is what just got me totally obsessed with functional medicine. So I was always doing kind of holistic care and integrative medicine, but as soon as this happened, I just dove deep into functional medicine and was able to recognize through testing and, looking at my life more closely that I was massively nutrient deficient, my adrenal glands were offline, and that there were things that I could do to actually feel vital and well again that had nothing to do with medication. And more importantly, how many people are potentially dismissed like I was, that this was like a psychological issue, when in fact there were physiological imbalances in my body that needed attention.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that you did?
So part of it was recognizing that in my craze after having my first child, I just wasn't eating well, right? I was eating like healthy things in air quotes, but I wasn't eating enough for nursing a kid for 2 years, basically. So I was nutrient deficient, and I basically went back and just revamped my whole eating style and was really intentional, scheduled breaks in my work routine. Imagine that, to actually eat, and recommitted to my meditation practice, which also just went offline after I had my child. And then I started myself on some adaptogenic herbs. So ashwagandha specifically was the one that I used for myself, which helps balance the cortisol response, and it helped me get back to sleep at night, which obviously is when we do all of our restoration. And so, over the course of a few months even, I was feeling so much better. It was pretty amazing.
We'll talk after the podcast. I've reached a certain age.
Those are all our secrets.
Yeah, there's a plant for that.
Yeah.
I need
A
some
few
help.
plants.
Now, what does the scientific evidence tell us about the use of botanicals to treat something like menstrual cramps?
Well, besides botanicals, there's actually a lot of things out there that have evidence that support efficacy with dysmenorrhea. Acupuncture is one. My personal favorite is ginger. So, I give people about 1,000 milligrams of ginger 3 times a day, and that works incredibly well for menstrual cramps. Vitamin E in combination with high-dose omega-3 fatty acids can also be very helpful for cramping. And then all the other good stuff, right? Getting good sleep and making sure that your diet is anti-inflammatory, and maybe even removing things, doing an elimination diet specifically to identify food triggers. And for someone who has low progesterone, you could even think about using something like Vitex or chasteberry that has good evidence as well.
And I think what's interesting is the very long traditional history of herbal medicine. In terms of modern medicine, looking at, well, is there a double-blind, randomly controlled placebo trial on that? And there are some. There's a lot of research out there that you can find. Black cohosh, for example, there's been over 140 studies, I think, on that herb in particular. There's statistical studies that have shown promise for things like valerian and cinnamon also for dysmenorrhea. Ginger certainly has been studied a lot. But it's understanding how these came to be traditionally used medicines. They were trial and error by local communities who had the plant, who knew about it, who used it over and over and saw how it affected people. And that traditional knowledge was passed down through generations. And so I was always interested in that mode of knowledge and that ecological understanding that I think traditional people give us.
And I think there's a fear that, and I can say this from my own experience, that when I went to medical school, there's kind of this idea that we should fear supplements and we should fear botanicals, and they are bad and they are dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've, gotten on the phone with a clinician who's very well educated and very good and cares about their patient a lot that gets really upset with me about using something like green tea extract, for example, right? Like it's a food-based substance that has been shown to be efficacious for a lot of different things, and yet they'll get really upset about it. And I think it's because there is this attitude that because there isn't the double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized study, that it's something that we should run away from. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and certainly the lack of sort of standardization and regulation of herbal products in this country. They're not treated as, medicines are treated as supplements. But the industry itself is very aware and very, very pro, wanting to make sure things are what they say they are, that they're not adulterated. Mm-hmm. There's a tremendous amount of work and study that goes into that on an industry-wide level. Mm-hmm. So it seems to me that if you do your homework and you seek out good supplement companies and you understand their reputations, you can get supplements that are safe and, efficacious.
Mm-hmm. Pure and good quality. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I will give one of my favorite apps a plug right now. It's the NIH's Herb List. Mm-hmm. It's a mobile app on herbal products. It's all the information that you can find on the website of the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. Mm-hmm. All in one handy-dandy app. And you can download it from any app store. And once again, it's called Herb List. Mm-hmm. So Herb List, one word.
That's great.
And hopefully your colleague might be listening or hopefully found it on his own. Now, are there any recent research studies that have you both going, ooh, or aha?
Oh, I just got to tell you about the one I read recently. It was looking at breast cancer risk. It was a joint study by University of Buffalo and the University of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has lower breast cancer rates than the mainland U.S., and so they wanted to kind of look into that, and they looked at nutrition, and particularly they looked at onions and garlic. So there's a Puerto Rican dish called sofrito, which is you put it on everything. It's chopped up onions, garlics, tomatoes, and peppers.
It's the Puerto Rican version of the Holy Trinity in Louisiana cooking.
Yes, and it's, a lot of people eat it. They found in their study, it was about 400 women that they looked at. If you ate it once or twice a day, they found a almost 70% decrease in breast cancer risk.
Wow.
I mean, onions and garlic. Is there anything more that tells you food is medicine?
Well, I mean, they're high in sulfur components that help with detoxification, so you're going to improve your estrogen metabolism. It all kind of makes sense.
It's
lower the inflammation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what's so interesting about food and herbs. It's not just an isolated substance. They, the various compounds in any food work together. They work in your body. And I think it's just, something that we haven't the science to really understand. That's why there is a lack of research.
It's coming.
Well, I hope you're right.
Well, the whole entire thing with the microbiome.
Well, absolutely.
And the whole body health. And, that's the future.
Yeah, the other research study that caught my eye was looking at supplementing women from early pregnancy through 6 months postpartum with lactobacillus, the rhamnosus species, decreased postpartum depression and improved mood. So.
On that too, I saw actually recently one using zinc. So looking at zinc levels in postpartum women with depression, even if they were in the normal range, if they were on the low end, so below 100, supplementing them to 100, basically resolved the depression without giving them antidepressants or anything else. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing too.
Yes.
We're talking about all this wonderful evidence-based information. And some of it has to do with, hundreds, if not 1,000 or more years of trial and error to find out what things work when we're talking about traditional medicine. I was fascinated when I looked back through the PowerPoint that you all shared with me after your grand rounds. Just the number of countries. Do either of you want to touch on maybe some of the different traditional medicine in the different countries?
Sure, like what modalities are available in different countries, or the fact that we find sources of studies from other countries?
Both, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of that is related to what we were talking about this kind of fear and lack of standardization that we experience here. And so it's harder to get studies done, but it's also that there's just no money in it, right? Like, who gets paid for that? Nobody. If I do a study on ginger, what big pharmaceutical company gets excited about that?
I can grow that in my garden.
Precisely. So part of that is, I think, that's an issue there. And I think in some other cultures, there's just a deeper respect for plants and for the wisdom of traditional medicine, right? So there's just a deeper interest in actually looking into that we don't really value as much, right? And so I think that's part of what you're seeing there, why there's so many sourcing of studies from other countries.
For Iran particularly, there's a tremendous amount of, they have an entire university dedicated to traditional medicine. They have thousands of medicinal plants that have been identified and studied. Of course, China, as traditional Chinese medicine, has a really long history. Ayurvedic medicine from India.
Absolutely.
Again, we're kind of an outlier in all of that tradition. In this country, Native American people from, all parts of the country have their particular medicines that they have used. Black cohosh, for example, is a native plant to this area or this country.
It's fascinating. I'll see if I can share some of that information in our story notes or show notes for this episode. So last but not least, there's a lot of nonsense out there concerning women's health. Some of it even dangerous. I won't name any names. But can you give us some resources that providers and patients can go to for good information?
I think my favorite two sources for patients would be Sarah Gottfried. She has a website and a blog, and Aviva Ram. I think both of them write really well, easy to digest, but also, they're cited. There's links to the literature so that if you wanted to get very geeky about it, you could. But I think those are really good patient sources. I think for clinicians, it really depends on how deeply you want to dive into this stuff. I know, Kimla probably has really good resources on botanical medicine. But I like the Institute for Functional Medicine. That's where I've done a lot of my training. There are conferences available that you can do from the comfort of your own home. So that's a really good resource, and I'll let you maybe share some of yours.
Wonderful podcast. I forget the name of it.
They do have a good podcast, and I'm also forgetting the name of it.
Is it Evolution
Medicine?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, it is excellent. Yeah. It's very good.
One source that I really like for both clinicians and patients, I think, is Dr. Tori Hudson. She's director of the Women's Institute for Integrative Health, I believe it's called. She's a clinic director. She's got 30+ plus years of academic and clinical experience. She runs a clinic in Portland and does in-person and online seminars. And she has a blog also where you search for anything and she will tell you the latest research studies and what she thinks of them and how they've been used in her practice. So that's an excellent Dr. Tori Hudson. And then right here in Washington, D.C., the Center for Mind-Body Medicine is an excellent resource. That I worked at the center when Dr. James Gordon. I worked at the center when I first moved to D.C. when I was training to be a midwife, in helping them put together their Food is Medicine conference, which is still going on. They did a lot of work on complementary cancer care. They have trainings for healthcare providers many times a year. Just excellent. That's where I first met Jeff Bland and found out about functional medicine and got my mind blown by his lectures. He's incredible.
He is.
So, yeah.
We should have him on the show.
Yes.
Oh, you got to have a long time for him to talk. He's amazing. He knows so much. But yeah, that's an excellent resource of Dr. Aviva Ram, again, midwife and physician and herbalist. Dr. Tirona Lowdog, who is also an excellent, she's written, compilation of complementary and alternative health research for women's health. And she has Medicine Lodge Ranch up in the mountains of New Mexico where she does in-person trainings and does her own herbal supplements and just has a lot of good
We've posted
information.
Things about her on our Instagram for the office. So that is all the time we have today. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
This is the GW Integrative Medicine podcast from the GW Office of Integrative Medicine and Health. I'm Janet Rodriguez. Thanks for listening.